Ladies and gentlemen, Regina Dugan, Vice President of Engineering, Advanced Technology, and Projects at Google.
One year ago, on June 26, 2014, you met ATAP, a small band of pirates trying to do epic shit by closing the gap between what if and what is. A team that is mobile first, lean and agile, open, optimized for speed. We wanted you to know that about us. But what we wanted you to remember about us is that ATAP is full of doer dreamers like you, who dare to try, even when it means we might fail. And that doing so is terrifying and hard because it is authentic and human and scary to believe and dream and do. Now, we've spent a year in that feeling. We are reminded every day that we face a choice: play it safe or go for it. We push each other, we push ourselves, because it's not easy, but it is what matters. It's why I'm here, and I suspect it's why you're back, why we all go back. And I don't mean to I.O. I mean to that terrifying place where you take the risk and you make something new. So we're going to go for it. No holding back. Welcome to ATAP. Game on. All right, so what kind of trouble have we made in the intervening 11 months and 3 days? A lot. We've crashed more than a few Ara phones, because that's what happens when you're revving a new engine for a race that is fast and worth winning. Add furious to fast, and you get storytelling Justin Lin style, our first live-action 360-degree Google Spotlight story. We're making a mobile movie theater, and it opens today. Now, we got a little impatient with the false choice between the ever-shrinking screen size and rich user interactions, so we created new materials for wearables. Now, that would be enough for today, but we're also going to talk about our continuing efforts in authentication as we made the move from tattoos to completely passive authentication. Our early results hint at a time when passwords and PINs are considered the relics of an inconvenient past. Yeah. And we're going to show you big mobile security in a very small micro package. Now, to accomplish this, our internal team of fewer than 100 has built a global network of partners measuring 1,000. In the last 11 months, the number of ATAP external partners has grown from 305 to 514, from 22 countries to 27, from 3 continents to 5. That means every day in ATAP, on average, we sign a new partner. That's innovation in the open on steroids. We seek these partnerships because we believe that the answer is out there, somewhere, if we are humble enough to find it. In every ATAP project, we see the inherent creativity of others at work, from Oscar-winning storytellers to system engineers, musicians to mathematicians. Our lean internal team gives us speed. Our external partnerships give us scale and expertise not available in our small team. Together, we have the ability to solve hard problems, problems you can't solve by yourself. You might say that ATAP has the spirit of a startup, the agility and scale that comes with a global network of the best minds in the world, all with the daring of Google. Okay, now on the day that we released the abstract for this breakout session, which, as you know, said jokingly, we're going to introduce wearables that we hope will blow your socks off. We mean this more literally than you might think. That day, the ATAP chatter on Reddit went something like this: smart socks confirmed. What? Is there a self-destruct feature? It just displays how smelly your feet are on your watch. Now, we've been talking about wearables for 2 decades, maybe longer. And whenever I've seen a field where many smart people have worked for a long time and we've struggled for big breakthroughs, it's been because there's some underlying scientific principle that we're missing. And if we can find it, it might unlock new strategies or opportunities. We asked this question about wearables, and here's what we discovered. A work from Paul Fitts. It was entitled The Information Capacity of the Human Motor System. It was written in June of 1954. That was 6 years after Shannon's seminal work on information theory. And many people were beginning to use information theory to explain things that they hadn't understood before. Now, Fitts used these basic concepts from Shannon's theory to demonstrate that our brains and bodies combine to create an information system with a certain capacity. Now, there were controversies about Fitts's work and nuances to it, but that science taught us something interesting about wearables. Let's look. If we look across the x-axis as screen size, this is tablets, smaller smartphones, against the y-axis. This is the load on the human motor cortex system, measured in bits per second. And if we look at the dependency between these two things for the human body, this is what we discover. Now, how did Fitts measure this? What he did is he took 2 bars, a certain thickness and a certain distance apart, and he asked his subjects to tap between those 2 bars. Now, while they're thick and far apart, this tapping task is easy. And when they're thin and close together, this tapping task is hard. And that's what's represented by this red line. Now, if we look at the limit that is imposed by the system that goes from my shoulder to the tip of my finger, which is the system that I use to interact with most consumer electronics devices, what I find is that it intersects the line, this red line, in an interesting place. Now, Ivan Poupyrev, he also revisited this and discovered something similar. Now, what does this tell us? Right at that intersection, we find the screen size of a smartwatch. So what we learn from that is that as the screen size shrinks to the point where we can put it on our body, we are approaching the limit of our ability to interact with it. Now, we have 2 projects that Ivan will talk about today. Project Solely, which seeks to break this tension by increasing the bandwidth of the system that we use to interact, and Project Jacquard, which seeks to create a larger surface area in which we can interact. Now, Ivan has been working on these technologies, ones that blend digital and physical interactivity, for a good portion of his career. And there are efforts to ease the interaction burden through voice and gesture, but Ivan is going to show you something very different. 2 projects, Project Solely and Project Jacquard, which seek to break this fundamental tension. Ivan.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's talk about Project Solely. Our hand is an amazing instrument. It's very fast and precise, particularly when we're using tools that require full dexterity of our fingers. The sensitivity and accuracy is very, very natural to us. We use it every day. We don't even notice it. But we're still not able to capture this sensitivity in our user interfaces, which are still quite clunky. There are many reasons why fingers and using fingers for manipulation is superior. For example, if you measure the bandwidth from the cortex to the tip of your fingers, it's 20 times the bandwidth to the elbow. So what if we can capture this power of fingers, these powerful capabilities of hand and fingers, and use for user interaction? What kind of interfaces can we build for wearables or other devices? And I've been asking these questions for a long time. Now, one approach is to give everybody a tool. Give everybody a pen and go with that. Not scalable. What we propose instead is that to use your hand motion vocabulary, a familiar hand motions you already learn from tools you're using every day for the interaction. For example, we all learn this motion, right? We're using a mobile phone all the time. We're manipulating this every day. And we don't have to learn it again. It's very intuitive. What if we remove the mobile phone and only leave the motion, which you already know, and then this motion, decoupled from the physical device, decoupled from the mobile phone, can be used to control other devices and becomes more generic input modality for everything else. It doesn't have to be only virtual touchpad. There's a multiple motions. There's a broad vocabulary of motions which can be created by your hand. Your hand can become a variety of controls, such as virtual dial, a slider, or anything else. So note how haptic feedback came naturally, because your hand provides you haptic feedback while you're using it. So these are very powerful physical metaphors, which we're already aware of, and they can form interaction vocabulary that can be applied to multiple contexts of use for multiple devices. For example, you can use, your virtual touchpad to control the map on the watch, or you can make a virtual dial to control your radio and volume of radio go through stations. Multiple things you can do. So what we propose is your hand can be complete, self-contained interface control. Always with you, intuitive, easy to use, and very, very ergonomic. In fact, it can be the only interface control and only interface device that you would ever need for wearables. All physical controls replaced by your hand. Now, to accomplish that, we need a sensor. And not every sensor would work. What we need is a sensor that can capture sub-millimeter motions of your fingers that are overlapped in 3D space. Because we want to put it into the small devices, such as wearables, it has to walk through materials, it has to go through materials, work day and night, and be small enough to fit into the device. So we also don't want to instrument the user. We don't want to put things in your hand. So we looked at the electromagnetic spectrum, like the entire one, and still we couldn't find anything appropriate. Capacitive sensing is very nice, but it cannot track 3D. Cameras would struggle with overlapped fingers. However, in between these two extremes, there is a sensor which is almost perfect, would fit all our requirements, and that's radar. The radar can do almost all of that. All of the things I talked about, fast, precise, can work through materials, all of that, except for one thing, it doesn't fit in a watch. And I have to make it smaller, otherwise it's not going to be wearable. So, and that's kind of hard. So we didn't have to start with a dish, thankfully. This is our first prototype with about this size on a table. And then over the course of time, we worked with our partners and industrial collaborators to go through many prototypes like that. And today, we have our first gesture radar that is small enough to fit into the wearable. Here it is. A radar in the pocket. So this is a new category of interaction sensors running at 60 gigahertz that can capture the motion of your fingers and hand in free space, touchless, at resolutions and speed not possible before. And you don't have to be a ref engineer to use it. Everything you need is inside, antennas, control electronics, and we can make it at scale. When we connect to a computer, we can run it at speeds up to 10,000 frames per second. And because we are fast and furious, here's an ATAP, as Regina mentioned. We went from the first prototype to this chip I just showed you in 10 months. So it's not only hardware that matters. The real essence of the radar, the richness of it, is in the signal. So originally we think about the radar as something like an echo. We send a signal, it bounces back from the object, give you a single return. However, to capture the complexity of the hand motion, the close range, what you would have to do, you would have to have the narrow beams scanning the entire hand in real time, which is really expensive, both in hardware-wise and computationally. We cannot do wearable radar this way. Instead, what we do, we illuminate the entire hand with a broad beam and treat the received signal as a complex superposition of reflections from different parts of your hand as it changes and moves in space. And as the hand moves, you can see that the shape of the signal changes. So we track changes in the signal, then change of the signal, and estimate shape of the hand from the signal changes. And now to explain how it works, I would like to invite on the stage Jamie Lean, our lead research engineer and radar expert.
Thank you, Ivan. The radar signal contains a lot of complexity and information about my hand when it's in the field of view. So we have a short demonstration showing how we interpret and extract this information for gesture sensing. Let's start with the raw radar signal shown in this plot here. This one signal actually contains a lot of information about my hand's size, shape, pose, and dynamics. You can see how responsive it is to any slight motion. So how do we capture all of this information? We first transform this signal into various representations which help us to visualize and understand the radio wave's response to my hand. For example, on the left, in the range Doppler image, the specular reflections off of my hand are mapped according to velocity and distance. If I move my hand up and down over the sensor, you can see this little ball of energy tracking my motion very finely. And if I start wiggling 2 fingers, suddenly we can resolve 2 moving components instead of just 1. Similarly, we have other transformations which help us to interpret immediate changes in the signal phase and amplitude, as well as frequency-dependent electromagnetic phenomena, which depend on my hand's size and pose. From these signal representations, we can extract features which directly measure my hand's characteristics and dynamics. These features are fed into machine learning algorithms, which interpret them into gesture labels. And now, the sensor can tell if I'm wiggling my fingers or holding still. So you can see at each stage of this pipeline, we abstract more and more from the original radar signal as we extract more and more concrete information about the gesture that I'm performing. And we'll be making this entire pipeline available to developers in the API that we're building. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. So this is the world's first radio frequency sensor used for touch and gesture interactions. So we talked about all the small, tiny gestures. Let me try to show you another demo where we actually try to do this. This is very early work. It just we just finished a week ago, I guess so. So first of all, there's the detection of the hand, right? So the radar can detect presence, can lock in your hand or lock out from your hand, can lock on the hand. And I'm trying to do is to directly map motion of the hand. See how precise it is. This is direct mapping, where I map 1 to 1. So even tiny motions like this, produce exact large motions on the screen. So I can control this little blob really, really precisely with just tiny motions of my fingers. Now, this was an interpreted motion of my hand, right? Direct mapping from the motion of the fingers to the control of the screen. So now we do some simple interpretations, which allows you to do things, control the gestures. I can do really, really fast. So this is some of the machine learning and intelligence we can build in the user interfaces. What's exciting about the radar is we have multiple modalities. I can track gestures and distance. So in the next demo, we can create multiple controls separated in space. But in this case, I can control hour. What time it is? I think about 9 or something, no? Okay, 10. Okay. And here, we can control minutes. And I can go back to hours and control hours again. And I can control minutes again. I can do the whole day. Now, let's not forget, this is not just a micro sensor and micro gesture sensor, right? It can do a lot of things. It can be a natural gesture sensor. We made a small game, a soccer game, where I can push the ball. Yay! I rigged this game so I always win. I can't lose in this game. So back to the project. So in Project Soleil, our what if became what is. We built a sensor that is small enough to fit into the wearables, a new sensor to fit on the wearables, but powerful enough to capture the exquisite manipulation capabilities of your hand. It's very powerful, a new sensor modality. We're working on finalizing developing of the brand of the board and software API that we're planning to release to developers later this year, so that you too can begin experiment and play with this new sensor modality and create new amazing things. So let's move to another project. As you remember from the earlier slide that Regina showed with the graph, there are two directions. One, to increase the capability of the sensors through of the interfaces through using faster and better manipulations and interactions using our hand. And the second one, to increase the space where we can interact. So let's talk about Project Jacquard, which approaches this problem. So Project Jacquard is about textiles. The idea from the project comes from observing similarity between multi-touch panels, which we use on mobile phones, and textiles. Both are interlocking grids. Therefore, if we can replace some of the yarns on textile with conductive yarns, what we can do is to weave multi-touch textile sensors. We can weave multi-touch panels, weave them, that are as flexible, colorful, tactile, made of silk, wool, cotton, any other materials, like any other textile. You can weave interactive input devices. And if we make garment out of such textiles, it would be immediately interactive and responsive, and you would not call it a wearable. You would call it a jacket. So we have seen instances of interactive garments before, people have done this, but we want to move beyond novelty. We want to move beyond a single case use cases. We want to make interactive garments at scale, so everybody can make them and everybody can buy them. And when we go this direction, we have to think about multiple clothes. We have to think about different clothes from multiple brands. So we have to think about making interactive textiles at the scale of the global apparel fashion industry, which sells 19 billion garments a year, which is 150 times more than mobile phones. We cannot expect global fashion industry to change just for us, even though we Google. We have to make interactive garments possible using existing manufacturing techniques and existing manufacturing supply chains. We have to adapt to textile industry. So every textile mill in the world can weave interactive textiles. So can we really manufacture interactive textiles, interactive garments for this reason, at scale? So that's the question. We traveled the world. We went to multiple countries, Japan, Europe. We learned about industry. We made friends. This is one of our partner mills in Japan. It turned out that the very basic, fundamental technologies and materials that are required to manufacture interactive textiles simply are not available. You cannot buy them off the shelf. So we had to invent them as we were building the capability. starting with conductive yarns. Conductive yarns that can withstand harsh industrial processes of textile manufacturing, which involve burning textiles with open fire, stretching, washing them, and pulling them with metal clothes. I saw it myself. This is not very friendly to electronics. So another problem was a choice of colors of materials. This is an example of a catalog of yarn swatches which textile designers use when they make fabrics. This is the choice of conductive yarns. Comes in one color, gray. And it's not even that conductive. So we had to go in to invent our own yarns. You see in this picture, not only they are hundreds of times more conductive, they could withstand all the burning and pulling forces of textile manufacturing, all those conditions, but they also look and feel completely normal to textile designer or to you. They look indistinguishable from normal yarns. However, if you look at them at the microscope, you will see that in fact they are complex multi-layer structures where highly conductive metallic alloys are braided together with thin silk fibers to give this yarn supreme strength and durability. And at the same time, we can make it in multiple colors. So let me show a video how these yarns are made. So you can see from the center, you can see the conductive core comes in and it's braided around with a sleeve of additional yarns which give it strength, but also can be of any color. It's a heavy industrial process. This is very different experience from programming. This is multiple colors which we can produce with our manufacturing approaches. Now, a challenge of producing interactive textiles is also about connecting them to the digital world. It's not just to make textile and be happy about it, but you want to actually use it. So when we made the first textile, we were very naive, and we just made this whole thing interactive, all 20 meters of it. But that created a connectivity problem. How would you take this textile and connect it to electronics? So we tried the brute force, more brute force, a little bit less brute force, but still didn't work, because I have to pull out each of the yarns by hand, and it just doesn't work. So what we did, we went back to the original idea. We went back to the craft. I thought, how can you weave interactive textiles in a way so it's easy to connect to electronics, not the other way around, how design electronics to attach to the textiles. So we went back to our partners in textile industry and figured out how we can weave our patches precisely where we want them to be, to localize them. So the problem is localized in one place, not on 20 meters textile. On the back, we designed three-dimensional weaving techniques where we can change directions of the yarn, going from the top surface of the yarn to the bottom and then free float outside so that we can access them with tools and machines required to make connection. At the same time, we're able to keep the structure of textiles, the structure of the yarns, untouched, so that we can connect the yarns and connect order. So the order of connection is very important. So at the end, we get something like this. And that can be connected to electronics really easily and without any efforts. So let me show how interactive textiles is woven. There is many, many moving parts. This is one of our partners, one of the experts in textile manufacturing and textile design in Japan. One of the best ones. So you can see our yarn coming in, our conductive yarn. And you can see by weaving the interactive panel coming out. This is our yarns inside the woven textile. This is a woven panel coming in. And we can place it anywhere we want on a piece of textile, and we can do it with anything you like. So using this established process, we can weave interactive touch panels. They don't have to be gray. They can be any color, any shape. Contemporary designs, there's interactivity woven there. Classics, transparent, invisible, stretchable, and of course we can make it on any size. We can weave interactive panels as large as you want. And now we can connect the interactive textiles to the digital world. We can connect them and control our devices with that. So let me show a demo how it works. First of all, let me show the textile. This is a piece of textile you saw at the video. This is how it looks like. It's real. It's not, there you go. Yeah. This is the back of the textile, you can see. We cut out the yarns to separate them. And now I'll show how it works. You can see the grid, and as I approach, and you can see the black square over here. Yeah, here you go. That is interactive area. As I approach it in my hand, you can see it moves. So that's, you see the difference between our work and the touch panels. Again, it's designed to sense your entire hand, because we don't expect people to use the fingers when they interact with the clothes like this. But you also can use fingers, of course. Here you go. So you can draw, you can write something. You can do multi-touch, like this. You can do the little waves across the textile, like this. Oh, but different directions, like this too, you know. To you, wave to you, wave out to you. So we don't expect these textiles to be replacement of the touchscreens. The material properties and the quality of textiles completely different, right? There's something you can put on your body, or on your couch, or on your pillow. On many places you use textile, and then it becomes interactive, not by precise manipulations, but using broad gestures of your hand, when you can just swipe across and control anything you would like to control. So what are we doing right now? Let's switch back to the slides. We are building the entire pipeline. We're going through the textiles, from the yarns to textile structures, to connectors, to wireless connectivity, mobile systems, and then to applications and services, which you can control with the textiles. This is a website where you can follow our progress, and please follow us and let us know what you think. Because what we're trying to build is build ecosystem where people can design applications for this technology and build new services based on soft computing, soft, flexible, textile computing. Now the story would not be complete. Oh, sorry, wrong clicker. Here you go. So the story would not be complete if we actually try to build a garment. How do we know that we succeed? And the only way to know that you can succeed, is to actually make a garment, interactive garment, and we give it to a tailor to do it. Not yourself. Somebody else has to do it. So we went to London, Savile Row. We have a long, renowned history of bespoke suit tailoring. We went to tailor and gave him an interactive textile, raw interactive textiles, and asked to make a jacket. And that short movie which shows the experience. Creating jackets is a 200-year-old tradition. It's a craft and art. People learn from generation to generation. The tools and materials, they don't change as much as we used to in our digital world. It's all about feeling, how you cut it, how it feels on your hands. So we give them the new material, our interactive textile. They were really excited, because rarely in this industry something new and completely different comes in. It's industry built on tradition and craft and respect for the craft and respect for traditions. The brands we're working with have been around for, a lot of the brands, clothes brands, have been around for hundreds of years. This is a connecting. They designed a little pouch to put electronics. They close it in. Does the jacket come to life? You swipe across the sleeve and make a phone call. Your jacket has arrived. And you can see this jacket right here, me wearing it. I actually quite like it. So it's about combining technology and fashion and making things fashionable, beautiful. That's the answer. Now we think about jacquard as a raw material that will make computation part of the language which apparel designers and textile designers and fashion industries speak. We want digital to be just the same thing as quality of yarns or color use, how digital it is. And we cannot do it by ourselves. We have to, and we wanted to work with creatives from the fashion industry. And today with us is our first partner, a historic brand sister San Francisco company. It was here long before we arrived here. They came with the gold rush and built their company by designing functional and fashionable, highly innovative garments. Our partnership is continuation of that tradition, and that's Levi's. And I would like to introduce my colleague, Paul Dillinger, a head of global product innovation from Levi Strauss Company.
Thanks, Alon. Thank you. Thanks. This is really, really exciting. As a kid, when I decided to become a fashion designer at 12, this is not the company I thought I would be keeping. I did not anticipate playing in this sandbox with these pirates. This is great. None of the future that we're experiencing right now was imaginable. This was science fiction not too long ago. This opportunity, this extraordinary pioneering spirit that ATAP embodies. It makes me think about our own history at Levi's. Levi Strauss was a German immigrant who decided to go west with the gold rush, like so many other people, to find his fortune in California. And he was a dry goods purveyor, selling the supplies to the miners going up into the gold fields near Sutter's Mill. And the miners were wearing cotton pants, right? And they were falling apart. They were ripping at these stress points. And there was this point of innovation where Levi Strauss and his friend Jacob Davies discovered that if they could use a copper rivet to create a point of strength where there had been a point of weakness, that they could solve a real problem. And there's an interesting symmetry here. The use of a metal alloy, copper, from an unexpected place, an unexpected technology, machine tools, creating strength in apparel. There's a nice symmetry of innovation between what's happening here at ATAP with Project Jacquard and what happened at Levi's over nearly 150 years ago. And I think if Levi Strauss was here with us today, looking for the next gold rush, there's a lot in common between Silicon Valley and Sutter's Mill. We think about the optimism, the creativity, the energy, the excitement around invention that these two cultures share. And it's only appropriate that these two great global brands rooted in San Francisco come together for an exciting opportunity like this. Now, the question is why? You know, when you think about the innovation, yes, the dazzling opportunity that we see in this new technology, yes, this great platform that's been enabled, yes, but why? And I would think about this, and all of us working on this project would think about why. I mean, I'd be driving to work in the morning thinking why, and some guy would cut me off because he's texting while driving. I would think about why as I'm biking around the city, struggling to get my navigation function from my phone as I'm navigating the grid of San Francisco. I'm sitting at dinner and I'm looking at someone else at a table sitting across from their partner and their phone buried up to their face. Phone to face, that's a why right there. We live in a beautiful, richly textured, real world, but ever increasing need and engagement with the digital world. And these worlds exist with a certain tension. If there's a chance to enable the clothes that we already love to help us facilitate access to the best and most necessary of this digital world while maintaining eye contact with the person we're eating dinner with, right? This is a real value. If we can deliver that value in the form of the clothes that you as friends and fans of this brand already love, that is a project worth doing. But as a fashion designer, it's not really a project that I'm entirely equipped to take on. We've got the genius pirates at ATAP who can help us develop and deliver this platform. And now we have all this great capability at Levi's. We've got experts in fabric creation and supply chain. We've got designers who can help us bring this form to life, and the merchants who can package it up and bring it to the consumer in a really compelling way. But there's a third creative constituency that we must activate. And so now, my friends, you are all fashion designers along with us. You have the. We can tailor a few specific applications for the exact consumer that we know, but the real opportunity is a creative unlock in this community to activate this new platform in ways that we have not yet imagined. And it's going to be iterative, and it's going to be fast and fun. And we're inviting you to come along on this journey with us as the fashion designers of the future to make something really special happen with Project Jacquard. All right? Yeah? Good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Paul. And with us today is James Curley, or JC as we know him, president of the Levi's brand. JC. When I spoke to JC this Wednesday, he told me that at Levi's, they were focused on two things: driving their iconic brand and innovation. And last week, on the 142-year anniversary of the 501s, they found a 130-year-old pair of Levi's from the 1880s. That's iconic. And this week, we announce our partnership to work on new wearables. That's innovation. So congrats, JC. Now, Yvonne's project makes it possible to have more intuitive interactions with your mobile devices. But if you have to enter a PIN or a password, it sort of spoils the mood. Because authentication sucks. Passwords suck. We forget them to our frustration. We reuse them to our peril. We need better methods, and squirrel noises are not scalable. 70% of users forget their password once a month. We try, on average, 2.4 passwords before we have the right login. Humans are a bad source of entropy, the entropy we need for security, because we need patterns to remember things. In the last few years, we've seen the emergence of dedicated sensors, like fingerprint sensors. New phones have them, but what if your phone doesn't? What if instead of a single sensor, we could use a combination of sensors that would allow you and your interactions with the device to become your authentication? Your keystroke patterns, not what you type, but how you type. Your patterns of speaking, not what you say, but how you say it. This combination with local-only processing might provide not only stronger security guarantees, but do so completely passively, and not as a binary, single yes-no score, but as a continuum of trust. This next frontier of authentication moves the burdens of PINs and passwords from the user to the device itself, thereby trading human cycles for machine cycles. Now, might we use advances in machine learning to ensure that only you can access your security-sensitive information? And do we have proof points that would lead us to believe it's even possible? We saw promising results from individual research labs across the globe, single modalities like gait and keystroke patterns, but none even as secure as a 4-digit PIN, and mostly demonstrated on small laboratory-scale data sets. We hypothesized, however, that if they were sufficiently independent, they might combine to offer authentication better than fingerprints or even passwords. To solve for multimodal authentication, though, we needed an interdisciplinary research team recruited from 13 universities and a large, comprehensive data set for them to work on. Now, ATAP exists at the intersection between a driving application and ambitious science. And Deepak Chandra's project, Project Abacus, has illustrated the benefit of this commitment over the last year. We needed the ability to get our partners in universities in to work with us faster than the typical 9 to 12 months. So in June of 2013, we signed a multi-university research agreement with 8 of the country's top universities. Last year at I/O, that 8 had turned into 16. This year, 16 is 33, including international universities. We can now partner with any one of them in less than 30 days, and we did. A team of 25 experts from 16 institutions traveled from 10 countries to facilitate the cross-pollination of ideas. They joined us in Mountain View for a 90-day intensive research sprint. Our data set was built from 1,500 data donors who signed up to contribute their smartphone sensor information. By the end of the study, we had created a 40 terabyte research data set, as far as we know, the largest of its kind. And we assembled 360 cores across 3 clusters, pulled all of the power from the first floor, and dropped power from the second. The result? Proof of the hypothesis, a new method of authentication that may prove to be tenfold more secure than the best fingerprint sensors. With only a software update, the hope is that we can provide this level of security to millions of Android devices. And we want to move beyond phone unlock to allow an application's authentication needs to be individually met using a system-wide API. The result might look something like this. Throughout your day, a continuous trust score running while you type, walk, browse, not what you do, but how you do it, to allow access to a game which might require little or no authentication, or a banking app which might require much more. An authentication system that accepts you and rejects imposters in real time on device. Now, on the right side of the screen, you see 2 of our researchers, Hong Tai from Columbia University and Sujit from the University of Illinois. They are using a research debug interface to show you how the system might detect an imposter through differences in typing patterns and other signals. Now, these results are hot off the sprint, so we're continuing development and hope that in the future, from high security to low security, developers and users will choose. Now, better authentication is only part of the better security story here. Project Vault is a hardware and software isolated environment in the form of a micro SD card. It can be used from mobile to desktop to the Internet of Things. Mudge and his team have jammed a security-dedicated computer into a micro SD card with a simple, driver-free interface and a suite of encryption primitives. Project Vault will enable secure communications and storage, initially for enterprises, eventually for individuals too. As our smartphones have become more capable, the code that runs them does too. Large code bases made by humans have errors. Errors may be exploited to place some of our most important information at risk, like encryption keys, sensitive documents, or the sensor parameters that I just mentioned. There's an inherent tension between the desire to create capability and the ability to secure the very code that drives those capabilities. Think of it like this. My home has windows and doors, a porous boundary, which is necessary for people and things to come and go. But those windows and doors make it harder for me to protect everything in the house. So I use a vault to store the most sensitive documents. It cannot store all of the contents of my house, but it can store my most precious possessions. Project Vault is your digital mobile safe. Big security, small package. Now, Mudge formerly led the Loft. That was the hacker group that in 1998 famously testified to the Senate that they could shut down the internet in 30 minutes. He was the original author of LoftCrack, the password cracking software that drove operating system security for years thereafter. And Project Vault is his program, Mudge.
Thank you. Thanks. So Project Vault is a small micro SD form factor device. It's a separate, ultra-secure mini computer. You plug it into any system that has a micro SD card slot or an SD card slot and make use of the suite of cryptographic services to manage your data needs. from encrypting data at rest to encrypting streaming end-to-end communications, like messaging, voice, and video. Only you can unlock it, and any information and the algorithms inside Project Vault are never exposed to the system that you plug it into. So the question is, why build this, and why a microSD form factor? It turns out you already have security elements in your phones and your computers. SIM cards, they protect the things that are important to the carriers. Trusted platform modules, or TPMs, they protect the things that are important to the OEMs and the content providers. These are services with very low bandwidth, few bits per second, and with minimal storage, measured in the order of kilobytes. So, where's the security element that protects the things that are important to you, that you have complete control over? So we made one. We needed a little more throughput because we wanted to be able to handle encrypting video. So at a bare minimum, 1 megabyte a second streaming. And we wanted it to be modular so that you could take it with you from device to device. And we also wanted gigabytes worth of storage for use cases like immutable logging systems. Now, an immutable logging system can be a really powerful deterrent to an adversary, where the evidence of their activities are forever captured on a separate security computer in a way that can't be tampered with or altered. Our first focus is the enterprise, because if it works for the enterprise, it'll work for the individual. What you're looking at here are the actual first versions of Project Vault, the microSD form factor. We're deploying about 500 of these within Google for authentication purposes, supporting things like Project Abacus that you just heard about, and the aforementioned immutable logs. Inside this little device is an ARM processor that runs our security-focused real-time operating system, or RTOS. It's got an NFC chip and antenna, same thing that's in your contactless payment systems. However, we're using it so that you can actually prove to Project Vault that you are in control of it and that it is authorized to perform sensitive processing on your behalf. We've loaded it up with a suite of cryptographic services, hashing, signing, bulk encryption, streaming encryption, a strong hardware random number generator, and 4 gigabytes of isolated, sealed storage. Thank you. 2 Vault users can communicate end-to-end without exposing any cryptographically sensitive data to the host systems, and this provides a consistent set of security features regardless of how secure or insecure the host system might be, and very importantly, in a way that's easy enough for any novice to use. So what do developers have to do to get their phones or the laptops or Internet of Things devices ready to use Project Vault? Nothing. The host system just thinks this is a regular storage device. But actually, that's just an illusion that we're creating on the fly. So to geek out for just a moment, when we get the requests, we gen up an artificial disk label, a master boot record, the file allocation table. We populate it with a read file and a write file. We mark all of the other blocks as bad so that you can only interface with these 2 files. You want to ask of a service from Project Vault, you open up the write file. You send in your request. You want the ciphertext coming back out, you open up the read file. It's a proc file system without any kernel drivers. The fewer drivers you can load on, that you have to load up on the host system, the less of a security risk you pose to the host system. And more importantly, it makes us operating system agnostic. It doesn't matter what version of Android, iOS, Chromium, Linux, Windows you have. You just plug it in, and it works. So that's what we're experimenting with inside ATAP right now. And it's still very much in the experimental stage. But what we're releasing today for everybody else is the full source code for our FPGA-based developers platform. So it's all Apache 2.0. This includes the Verilog and VHDL and all the code for the security-based RTOS, the SD controller firmware to allow communications with the host systems, the NAND flash translation layer so you can manipulate the sealed storage, my personal favorite, the hardened and accelerated hardware crypto cores, and the interface description language so you can talk to it. In fact, even the processor on this is open source, the OpenRISC 1200. We're doing this to be fully transparent because we want developers to be able to see how it works, understand it, trust it, and also then experiment with pulling certain sensitive applications outside of the general purpose operating systems that you're used to writing in, because these devices might be untrusted or just too complex to ever fully secure. And now you have an external isolated execution environment to run them in. So with that, I'd like to invite Tim Karstens up, my colleague who's done a lot of the Verilog VHDL work for these dev boards. If I could get the camera up, we're going to run a little demo. I'll log you in here. Oh, I hate passwords. Made a living off of them for a while, too. Oof. So on this side, if the camera can focus in on the laptop, we're looking at a chat server. And so this is a chat server running out of the East Coast, essentially the God's eye view. There's nothing there right now because we're going to see the communications as they come up. On the right, we have, of course, Bob and Alice. So Bob and Alice both have a Project Vault device. So if we could have Alice plug in the Project Vault here. Yep, there's the file system, the illusionary file system, with the read file and write file that it sees. So at this point, Alice would launch a chat application, and the chat application just opens those two files to make use of Project Vault. And if we go back over to the laptop, please, with the camera. If the demo gods are happy with us today, and it appears that they're cooperating, this is the ciphertext. So all the ciphertext on the server. So what's happening is Project Vault is ingesting this, decrypting it, looking for the hello messages from each other, from the contexts that are, again, stored in Project Vault, engaging in key negotiation, setting up a session key, and once that's done, they have an encrypted secure communications channel. So if we're back over on the phones, we're going to send some messages back and forth. The server or any third party only ever sees the ciphertext. The phones display to the users the decrypted communications, but none of the secrets, none of the private keys, or the actual algorithms that are operating with them are ever exposed to the device it's plugged into. So it shouldn't matter how many doors or windows your house has, as long as you have a vault in it. Thanks. Thank you very much.
That's big security in a very small package. But Spotlight Stories seeks to give you big movie experiences through the mobile window that used to feel like just a smaller screen. We combine traditional storytelling with interactive elements in a way that preserves the emotional connection of a linear narrative. Now, it's not often you get to be present when a new creative format is made. Henry Jenkins, founder of the MIT Comparative Media Studies program, explained that once we introduce a medium, a mode of human expression, into the universe, it tends to persist. Live theater persists in the face of cinema. Radio persists in the face of television. That's why it feels special, because a new format has a certain timelessness to it. Last year, Disney legend Glenn Keane completed 10,055 original drawings to create Duet. Duet was our third Spotlight story, and a few months after I/O, Duet shipped to millions of users on Motorola phones. The first wave of press coverage was in the tech and Android blogs. Then Duet attracted a bit of attention in the entertainment community, and the artistic community recognized Duet as well. There was Oscar buzz, and Duet was nominated for an Annie, the highest award in animation. It won the film industry's award for Best Original Score. And while millions saw Duet through a small mobile window, lucky passersby saw it on the largest screen in the US, we flooded Times Square with Scott Stafford's original score. And for a few minutes, in the rain and the cold, on Christmas Eve, people slowed down. In 2008, Jeremy Hsu wrote an article in Scientific American entitled "The Secrets of Storytelling: Why We Love a Good Yarn." And in it, he said that storytelling is one of the few human traits that are truly universal across culture and all known history. People in societies of all types weave narratives. And when a characteristic behavior shows up in so many different societies, its roots may reveal something about our evolutionary past. Simply put, we are wired for stories. It's part of being human. We long for new ways to experience and engage with stories, and storytellers look for new outlets. In Spotlight Stories, we found the answer right in front of us. Hundreds of millions of powerful media devices, millions more shipped every day, with ever more beautiful screens, powerful graphics, and precise sensors. Please welcome Jan and Rachid, quite the pair, creator and director of the original Spotlight story, Windy Day, Jan Pinkava, and with him, Rachid El Guerrab, the technical project lead for Spotlight Stories. Their goal: more great stories, more happy viewers, push the format. Gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, everybody wants more stories, but we can't make them all ourselves, of course. So how do we enable more creators to create these kind of stories? As developers, we of course create an SDK. In our case, it's a story development kit. Now, to enable filmmakers to create content for mobile, which is a different space, this SDK has to fit within their familiar film production pipeline. So for example, we integrate with standard animation and modeling tools like Maya, and we support standard technologies like Pixar's Open Subdiv surfaces and the Alembic geometry format from Sony and Lucasfilm, except these run normally on render farms and big servers, but we have to run them in real time, on mobile, and at 60 frames per second.
Now, for me, as an animator and a director, that all looks like fairly familiar territory. But the SDK also has to be a bridge to the unfamiliar landscape of a new form of storytelling. Now the stories are interactive and immersive. They're real-time, continuous, and they feel more like shooting a movie than watching one. The flow is affected by the attention of the audience. That means they have to be structured differently in both time and space. You have to replace the traditional film language of cuts and shots with new techniques. For working with this interactive story structure, this SDK has a story editor. Now, let's say I want to make sure that the audience sees a key action, like here, Pepe about to pick up his hat. One technique is to make the story wait for you until you're watching. With the story editor, I can tell the action to pause and until your camera is pointing at Pepe. And then the action continues. Very simple. In this way, the story is interacting with you. When we're planning a story, we use storyboards. But it no longer makes sense to have just a sequence of storyboards as if the action is playing out on the screen. In an immersive story, we have a window onto a world all around us, and we have to deal with that space. So our 360 storyboard tool lets you place the boards all around you so that you can work out the story in space as well as time. And we can't stop at building these tools. We have to put them in the hands of storytellers. making it real, making it work as part of their process. And a growing number of award-winning filmmakers are exploring this new territory.
Working in a virtual world where the audience is essentially the camera changes things for you as a director.
We are trying to predict the curiosity of the viewer and make it all feel very seamless.
So I thought, well, what if I could structure it like a song with chorus and verse and the bridge?
You're kind of giving the control back to the audience, which I thought was a really interesting idea.
You can't just put a traditional story on this. You're going to have to think a lot about narrative in a different way.
Everything from the tools that we use to the way we write stories and the way we lay out narratives is going to change and become something exciting and new again.
Now, they're not just making stories, they're shaping the format. By using the tools, they're making the tools by telling us what they need to do. And of course, great storytellers need an audience.
So now we have to scale the distribution of these kind of stories and get them to more viewers. So this week, we launched the Google Spotlight Stories app for Android, and very soon after will be for iOS. Thank you. Where you can find curated stories by great storytellers. You can share them with your friends and look behind the scenes. And this summer, we're on YouTube. Our interactive format supported natively in YouTube Mobile. Thank you. So now, filmmakers have the means to make these stories, and we can put them at the hands of hundreds of millions of viewers. Done, we planned our vacation. Then somebody had to ask, what about live action? What are you doing there? And so that somebody was Justin Lin. And when Justin saw Windy Day the first time, our first story, he was instantly intrigued by this idea of telling stories that surround you. But he wanted to do it in his own way. He wanted a full Hollywood cinematic experience with high production value in 360 on mobile. And that, of course, created new challenges, and goodbye vacation. So first, we had to figure out the camera. For his films, Justin needs professional-grade cameras that can capture high resolution in low light, at night, and with fast-moving action. Now we have to do it in 360. And with our partners Bullet and The Mill, we looked at every 360 camera system out there to find one that could make the grade, and just didn't exist. So we had to build it. Our rig uses 4 Red Epic Dragon cameras with 8mm fisheye lenses from Canon, capturing at 6K resolution each. So you can see there Angus, the creative director from The Mill, looking a little bit worried about all that data coming out of the cameras. We created a custom casing that reduces the overall rig size and the offset between the nodal points of the lenses, which is very important for 360 video stitching, but also helps with tasks in post-production and visual effects down the line. But of course, it's not enough to just build the tech. We need to make sure that Justin can direct with it on the set in 360. So we set up on-set live stitching and streaming to 360 monitors with real-time feedback on custom mobile rigs so that Justin can see what the camera sees at every moment and what the viewer might see. Now we have to put it all together for you and deliver it to your device. And to do that at full resolution with cinematic field of view means streaming, decoding, and rendering the equivalent of 3 4K videos at once. That's like 3 HD, Ultra HD TV streams coming through your phone. Of course, few, if any, devices can handle that. But it turns out that only, at most, about 25% of that data is actually needed at any one time, because that's all you can see through your phone. And so we implemented a dynamic spatial tiling system that would process only what's visible. and adapts to your device's horsepower in real time. Thank you. Those tiles are decoded in multiple resolutions and then blended together to adapt to your view in motion. So there's no blocking, stuttering, or janking, whether you're turning really fast or moving slow.
So it's all about what you're seeing. Now, for a filmmaker, telling a story is about directing the attention of the audience. You see this gesture all the time. This is what I want the audience to see. Now, some things are important to see or to hear so that the experience actually makes sense as a story, right? In a traditional movie, the story has been completed in the edit suite, and the audience knows where to look. You just watch the screen. When watching an immersive story, the audience is free to look around just about anywhere, and sometimes it's easy to get lost. So we developed camera composition and tracking techniques that help you stay with the action without ever dictating where you should look, just as a gentle guide that still leaves you free to point your camera wherever you want. Whether you like to look around or just sit and watch, we're there to help you enjoy the ride. Now, to complete the picture, we need to complete the sound experience. How can we bring the richness of immersive theatrical sound to the mobile world? In a movie theater, everyone looks in one direction at the screen, and the sound experience can be created with a fixed speaker layout. In our format, you can look in any direction, the story world is all around you, and the speakers are your headphones. The sound in your ears now must change as you turn, just like real life. To get a truly interactive and immersive experience that responds to you, we developed dynamic virtual surround. Using techniques like ambisonics and binaural rendering and an end-to-end pipeline, sound designers can now create subtle and rich and realistic acoustic spaces of the sort they're used to in feature films, but now in real time, 360, on mobile. And for Justin Lin's story, we created a full-sphere surround field for interactive film from scratch. That's a first. And the soundscape of the story is now all around you, and it comes to life only when you watch the show. So we're not just putting you in the picture, we're immersing you in the sound, and all you need is an ordinary pair of headphones. Now, we'd love to show you this and share this with you right now. Unfortunately, the screens in this room are only big enough to give you about 15% of the whole immersive experience that you can get with a pair of earbuds and the phone in your pocket. So here's just a taste of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the writer, director, and producer of films grossing over $2 billion, including the Fast and the Furious franchise and upcoming Star Trek III for Paramount, director of our latest Google Spotlight story, Justin Lin. Awesome, Justin. Because it's taken some serious storytelling partners to get us here, I want you to meet some of the other creative talent that helped make Google Spotlight Stories and continues to create in this new mobile format. Let's welcome back Jan Pinkava. Jan won the Oscar for Jerry's Game and was the co-director for Ratatouille. Jan is the creative director for Google Spotlight Stories. And Karen Dufalo, double Oscar-winning producer who, along with Jan, continues to carry the Spotlight Stories creative frame. Now, Jan and Karen have been here from the beginning when our makeshift studio in ATAP was a conference room where we posted up art boards that had been transported awkwardly in an engineer's car. And the man who challenged the new with the old hand-drawn animation in mobile is back, Glenn Keane, animation legend and creator of our third Spotlight Story duet, our story development kit guinea pig and resident nutcase, Shannon Tyndall. Shannon won a Primetime Emmy for individual achievement in animation, and he's working on our fifth Spotlight Story. Think science fiction ice capades with an unsuspecting visitor. And finally, because what else would you do after winning an Oscar but a Google Spotlight Story? Patrick Osborne, head of animation on Big Hero 6 and winner of the 2014 Oscar for the Best Animated Short. Justin, Jan, Karen, Glenn, Shannon, and Patrick are here for a box talk right across the hall, 11 a.m., second floor, Alcove 3. Thank you. Awesome. And well, that's a wrap. Almost. Creating the hardware equivalent of the software ecosystem is hard. In the last months, we've moved from the industrial design to functioning prototypes to our first engineering spiral. We've moved from FPGAs to ASICs, and we're starting our third spin. Rafa Camargo is our lead system engineer with responsibilities for hardware and software. He's accustomed to mobile firsts. He led the first Android platform at Motorola. He's been at the forefront of nearly every generation of mobile technology, and now he's on Ara. Rafa.
Thank you. Project Ara is all about letting you decide what your device is and does. So let's see how it works. Let's try on the screen. This is the frame. We call it the endo. And these are modules. Let's just connect them. This is an applications processor. I just connected the battery. That's a speaker. And this is another speaker. I want my Ara in stereo today. Enabling all of this is what we believe to be the first UniPro switch network. And running it all is Graybus. Yeah. Here you go. Ara. Running the latest Android version. Let me show you something else. Let's launch the camera. Of course, I know that today I didn't configure a camera, but let's see how easy it is to add new hardware functionality to your device. This is a camera module. I connect it, and it's that simple. There you go. All right. So why don't we take the first public picture with Ara? All right. All right, guys, smile for the picture. Let me see. Oh, you all look awesome. OK. Thank you. Follow us on our Twitter account, Project Ara, where we will have updates on our next developer conference.
Can we have just a moment, please? Because what just happened, we assembled a smartphone on the fly, booted it, runtime detected a camera, and took your picture. That's nuts. Artists and musicians, scientists and engineers, we are more the same than we are different. We share a deep satisfaction that comes from creating something that never existed before. And a certain exhilaration when that something connects us, makes us better, celebrates the inherent curiosity, the vulnerability, the joy, and the sorrow that makes us human. That kind of work, it is inherently born of the human spirit. It is a little badass and beautiful. It is tech infused with our humanity. And it doesn't have love sprinkled on at the finish. The work itself is an expression of love. That's what it feels like to us in this fast boat, in this small band of pirates trying as best we can to do some epic shit. Thank you.